to the Apartment 6 podcast. I'm Jess.
And I'm Marissa.
And we're so happy that you're with us again this week.
Yes, thanks for tuning in once again. I'm in a weird mood.
We're both in weird moods.
I literally think that me having a single sip of wine tipped me over the edge.
We're both sipping on some rosé.
Yeah. And it feels like summer. We've been saying that this week. Especially now, having wine while we record this podcast, it feels so like, oh, we're just chilling on the couch. So breezy.
Yeah, it's especially like rosé, because it's like rosé brings like the frosé craze of summer. So it's just like we're sipping on like a nice refrigerated rosé. Had the window open all day in the living room. We're sitting in the living room right now on our couches, just lounging back, watching the sunset.
Yeah, it feels really nice. Before we delve into our topic for this episode, let's do our weekly roses and thorns.
Let's hit it.
So my thorn is, I'd like to remind everybody about how a couple episodes ago we talked about how Jess has broken some glassware in this home. And at the time when she was explaining all of that, I was sitting very pretty and had not broken anything. And I was like, there, it's okay.
You couldn't understand.
I was like, you can break stuff. It's okay. Meanwhile, I'm like, I'm never going to break anything.
Is that really what you thought?
No, not really. But I think like passively, I didn't expect myself to break anything. Because I'm a pretty like delicate person. Like I don't really do anything with force.
Yeah, I'm like Miss Forceful over here.
I just like, I'm very like careful about everything. So I didn't foresee myself doing it. But spoiler alert, I did break a glass this week. And it was my thorn. And honestly, it was more sad what I broke because it was like a specialty glass that we got from a local brewery that we went to for New Year's Eve this past year. So it was actually sadder than what Jess has broken. So I'm even more sorry.
It's true. I just broke some generic cups. But speaking of which, since we last talked about me breaking items, I did break another glass. And I shattered it into the garbage disposal, which is exactly what Marissa did. The problem is like it slips out of your hand so easily when you're washing dishes. So that's what happened to you. Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, I don't want to dwell on my sins. What is your thorn?
Your sins. My thorn is just that I had a couple of days, I think it was like Wednesday and Thursday, but especially Thursday, that I just wasn't feeling good this week. My allergies were really like kicking the crap out of me and making me feel so tired. And I was having sort of like a low confidence couple of days, which just sort of goes back to what we were just talking about in the last episode about body confidence and how it's not, it's not a linear journey.
Yeah.
And you have bad days, and I just had a rough couple of days and just didn't feel great. Felt too tired and too unmotivated and just blah. But I mean, I'm good now.
As Hannah Montana said, everybody has those days.
It's true.
Everybody gets
so true
that way. Is that what she says?
Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has those days. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Everybody gets that way.
She does say everybody gets that way.
Everybody gets that way.
All right.
Sometimes I make a plan.
Okay.
You guys, I just had a memory of like I had this canopy in my room, I think from like IKEA, from like, I don't know, for probably like a year in like middle school. And she, in that concert, in like the Nobody's Perfect concert, like whenever she did that song on stage, in the show at least, she would come out of like this curtain or whatever, and I used to pretend like I was her and play that song and do that. Wow.
I love it.
Thanks for unearthing that.
You're welcome.
So what's your rose?
My rose from this past week is that I decided to take a couple hours off one day And it's funny because my company has been pushing us to do that lately. I think it's because they're afraid that people aren't going to use any personal time until all of this is over. So then it could be like the last few months of this year, everybody just takes hella time off. So I think they're trying to really avoid that. So they're like, take your time off now, be kind to yourself. But I feel like it's really just like them trying to get people to take it throughout the year instead of at the end.
Do you get paid out at the end of the year for time you didn't use?
No.
Okay, so it's not like okay. So it literally is just about like they don't want everyone taking the same weeks, because I was gonna say I could understand that if they pay you out for that time, which my company also doesn't pay me out for it. Otherwise, I would probably do that because I'm on furlough anyway, and then
yeah, that's true.
I don't know, like who knows when we're gonna get out of this, because we have a trip to LA that we were sort of planning for the fall, but who knows if that'll even happen. In which case, what is my time even for?
Well, I used a couple hours of mine this week to just my goal was just to like be outside, because I just was getting to a point where, and this is like not a feeling I get often because I'm a pretty comfortable indoor person. Like I do a lot of my favorite hobbies inside. But I was just really getting this feeling that I just needed to like sit in the sun for a couple hours. Like it was almost like I was dehydrated and I just like needed, like I just needed the sun. So I took those hours and I chased the sun. In that, I Googled a park and I went to it and I found a spot that was very separated and no one was near me. And I was able to just sit for a couple hours and read. And it was exactly what I needed. I felt like my batteries were recharged and it was great.
That does sound really nice.
Yeah.
I'm so glad for you.
Me too. What about you? What was your rose this week?
My rose, besides the amazing sushi that I just ate tonight for dinner, was that last night I went for a long walk around like 7:00. So I sort of like, I went for a walk around the reservoir and the sun was sort of setting and I wasn't ready to come home yet. I just wanted to keep walking. And so I just like went for a long loop around our neighborhood and like no one was around anymore because it was like the sun was setting, but I was lit by street lights. And I just, I walked like 3.5 miles and just listened to music. And it was one of those walks where I was so like in my thoughts that I like wasn't even really paying attention to what I was listening to. But then every once in a while I would sort of perk up to a song. And I just, I put my face mask on. I walked in, a t-shirt and shorts because it was so warm, but it was just before the rain. So it was kind of like breezy and a little bit like you could smell that the rain was coming. It was really nice. It makes me want to go do it again tonight, but I'm not going to. So our topic for today's episode is what we're calling defining moments.
Yes.
So this was inspired by our friend Mary. She very generously got, what is it called? Jackbox TV.
Jackbox, yeah.
And we played some games the other night and we were just talking about the podcast, and she was just giving us some ideas and we thought this was a really cool idea. So it's basically just moments from our life that really stand out to us as being either something that really shaped us, whether it's our perception or like the track we were on or just something like that. And so we each chose some moments from our lives that mean something to us and that we feel like changed us in some way.
Yeah, I feel like the change part is significant because I would define, this is meta, but I would define defining as something that when you look at who you are, that moment is a piece of that.
Yeah.
So
totally.
It became part of your definition of self.
Yeah.
That's what defining moment means to me.
Yeah, no, I would say same. The things that I picked out for today are things that if they hadn't happened or if I hadn't been put in certain circumstances or dealt with certain circumstances, I wouldn't have the same perspective, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start us off, and then we're going to go back and forth. We each have a few moments picked out.
Mm-hmm.
So my first defining moment happened when I was at age 11. I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. And if you know me, this isn't a surprise. But yeah, so the story behind that is that I was leaving fifth grade when I started experiencing what I thought at the time were physical symptoms. I was experiencing like stomach aches and things like that, and what I later defined as like nerves. And I had a really awful summer between fifth and sixth grade. I was super petrified for middle school, which was odd for me because I loved school and I had some good friends, and there was no reason for me to feel the dread that I felt, but I just did. And I had such separation anxiety from my mom, and I was just having such an awful, awful time. And I couldn't even put into words how like uncomfortable I felt in my body. And I've written about this before in a couple of different ways, but there was this one night where I had a really bad panic attack. It was the first time I'd had a panic attack, and it's one of the worst ones I've had. Because I was so young and I didn't know what was going on. And luckily my mom did. And my mom had told me, I think you're experiencing anxiety. We're going to try to get you in with a counselor, but the counselor wasn't available until like October. And it was, I think, July or August at the time. And I was just really struggling. And so that night I had a really bad panic attack. I can remember it really clearly. I begged my mom to go for a walk after dinner because walks were like one of the few things that really helped me clear my head. And the walk didn't help. Normally it would help, but I got home and my mom put on 13 Going on 30 for me, and I sat on the couch.
Amazing.
I love that movie, and it'll always hold a special place in my heart for many reasons, but this night as well. I sat on the couch and I tried my best to watch the movie while my mom tried to call my doctor. And then I started panicking, like so bad that I threw up. And then my mom called my pediatrician. Of course, you can tell that the order of this is a little bit all out of whack because I was so young. And the pediatrician was like, if she's physically ill because of this, like one of the best things you might be able to do is just take her to the emergency room, and she might be able to get more immediate treatment. And so my parents and my brother took me to the ER that night, and it was like one of the scariest nights of my life because going to the emergency room for me meant that like I must be like crazy or dying or something. And my mom did a really great job of it because my mom has anxiety, and so she did a really good job of explaining to me what was going on inside my body and how it had a fix. And yeah, so they sent me home. I think they saw me. I don't remember if they gave me anything, but they immediately set me up with a psychiatrist who is still the psychiatrist I see to this day. And she was able to diagnose me with generalized anxiety disorder. And I sat in a room where I had all these doctors writing shit on whiteboards. And it was very overwhelming for an 11-year-old. But honestly, I kind of liked the attention. 'Cause I've always been a little bit of an attention hog. But yeah, so I got diagnosed, and I completely feel like my anxiety has shaped my worldview. It's made me so much more empathetic to other people. At the time, I was the only person I knew who had anxiety, and I felt really isolated because of that. And my mom told me, I guarantee you, all of your friends are going to experience this at least once. They're either going to have it like you do, where they need to take medication or they need to, regularly deal with it, or they're at least going to have one day where they feel really anxious. And she was like, I know that you feel alone in it now, but you're actually just really ahead of the game. And it went on to be completely true. I don't know a single person who hasn't experienced at least a day that feels anxious, or an hour that feels anxious for them. And yeah, it's made me way more empathetic, and it changed the way that I carried myself in my life. It's also shaped how I've experienced things, because there are certain things that I can't experience calmly. My anxiety is always there. And yeah, so that's my first defining moment. It was a big one.
I'll say that I'm living proof of a friend that has benefited from that defining moment.
That's so nice.
It's true. You know it's true.
Yeah, but I tend to think of it as like a burden to other people.
I'll say this. I had my first ever panic attack junior year of high school. No, sophomore year of college. I think
We went from junior high school to
I know,
sophomore year
it
of
was
college.
like such a wide berth. I think it was sophomore year of college.
Yeah, I think that we're thinking of the same event.
Yeah, and I would have had no clue what was happening or what to do if I didn't immediately go to you.
Oh,
it's true.
Yeah,
so it's just like a very clear example of what you just said. Like, it's true.
Yeah. That makes me happy to hear that it was helpful to you at some point in time. You've also been extremely helpful for my anxiety, because you're a very calming presence for me. People who make me feel safe calm me down, and you're someone who makes me feel safe, because I feel like you have my back. I feel like you're a trustworthy person. You're mature, and I would trust you with my life. And so I feel like,
oh my God,
I would.
It's just a surprise.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, well, we live together, so I feel like that kind of is us being like, you?
Yeah.
I trust you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's really sweet that it's helped you.
Yeah.
Well,
it did.
So what is your first defining moment? Or it doesn't have to be the first one you've ever had, but what's the first on your list?
Yeah, it happens to be the first one chronologically in this list, because it's from high school. I have like a comical connotation with this moment, just because like now it just seems so ridiculous to me, but at the time it was really, really upsetting. So when I was junior in high school, it was either junior or senior. I was an upperclassman in high school, and it was Spirit Week. So I think all high schools do this, but basically it was a short week for Thanksgiving, and there were all these activities and different themes to dress up every day. So one of the days, I think, must have been like our class colors or something. It was specific colors. It was green and yellow. I'll never forget. Also, ugly color combination. Like, why green and yellow?
Well, I mean, blue and yellow make green. So it's just, maybe they were just like, we'll just take like
blue and yellow would have been better, but green and yellow is just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Anyway, we had to wear green and yellow.
Either way, it was ugly.
Maybe I just think of it as ugly now. But yeah, we had those colors to wear on this day, and it would take forever to give like all the backstory of these friendships I'm gonna talk about, but basically I was in a group of friends that I always felt like I was on the outs. Like I specifically remember that the phrase I would say to myself was that if they had to vote someone off the island, I was watching Survivor at the time. I think that's why I said this. I said that if they had to vote someone off the island, it would be me. Like I knew that I was the lowest on the totem pole in this friendship group. I knew that. So
I hate that for you.
Yeah, me freaking too. But the personification of that was that on this day, that group of friends got together without me and made matching green and yellow tie-dye shirts, and then had the audacity to wear them in the halls, strutting their little booties around the high school hallways in these green and yellow tie-dye shirts, just like oblivious to how much it hurt my feelings.
It's so dumb how stuff like that happens, right? Because when you really put yourself back in those shoes, like I also had Spirit Weeks.
Yeah.
You got gypped by them doing it on like a Thanksgiving week, so you only had like 2.5 days.
Yeah, it wasn't a whole week. Yeah.
That sucks. But like it's so easy to just invite someone over to your house to make a goddamn t-shirt. Like, did you ever like really look back at like things that were like a big deal, and you're like, wow, I really could have been a better person. Like, because I can think of times where, like, I maybe was like, oh, it's going to ruin everything if, like, they have to come to, which, like, not saying that I was a mean girl who did the thing that they are doing to you.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, I remember it being, like, a big deal to be like, oh, well, it's going to be such a big deal if, like, I won't be able to, like, go in your car to go to prom or, like, something like that. And it's, like, it's so sad. It's, like, if we just treated each other nicely, like, we could have really saved each other some time.
To me, even if they had some whatever against me at the time and that made them not want me there, if I was in their shoes, I would have said, I don't really want her there, but I don't want to deal with the repercussions of excluding her and having this like confrontation or having it be awkward where she knows and like she knows and we know, and it's just I would just like want to avoid that entirely. And I don't know how all of them, I think there were like 4 of them, I don't know how they all just decided that they didn't care that it was going to hurt my feelings or be awkward, because literally they were my closest friends. So I stood with them at the bleachers watching these like class activities. So I was in this like freaking green tank top and they were all in green and yellow tie-dye shirts. And there are literally photos, and I've shown Jess the pictures.
Yeah.
There are photos that show me completely the odd one out, and they're all matching, and I'm just me.
I know. And like, I'm trying to remember the photo. I feel like you were standing like one riser above them or something. Like there's some sort of weird hierarchy to it too. Yeah, we've talked about this a lot, like a lot in the last year specifically.
Yeah.
And you have showed me the photo a couple of times.
Yeah, and the reason it's a defining moment and the reason we talk about it so much is because whenever I'm in any sort of conflict or situation relating to a friendship, this is a moment that I always go back to. And usually it's in a positive way. Like it'll show me, I basically use it as a point of comparison now. Like I'll think about how awful I felt in that moment and how I knew that those were not good friends. And I'll compare it to the friendships I have now, and I'll kind of use it as a barometer.
Yeah, it's like your litmus test.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm like, well, I know exactly how it feels to have a really shitty friend. So if I start to feel like that again, then I know I'm in trouble.
The goal is to never have a friend who would tie-dye a shirt without you.
Yeah, very true. And it just, it made me really grateful, like in college and as an adult, to have really healthy, solid friendships because I could compare them to bad friendships. And it just made the good friendships so much better.
I was going to say, have you ever found yourself in a position with a friend or a friend group like that again?
Nope.
And do you think that was like a totally conscious effort?
I think that a branch off of this was like my confidence at the time. So I think that was a huge thing. Like I just really thought really low of myself at the time. And once I got into college, I just thought a little more highly of myself and just had more confidence. So I think that just naturally developed into healthier friendships, because I think it's really true that like the way you treat yourself, the better you treat yourself, the better people around you will treat you.
Yeah, no, totally.
Because you won't accept any less than good treatment.
Yeah. That's so true. Your self-esteem really plays into the relationships you keep.
Yeah, definitely. So that was a big one for me in high school. What is your next moment?
So my next moment is another sort of damper on the party. I like, well, not that was a good moment, but just that I feel like after talking about like my anxiety diagnosis, it's sort of like, okay, are you going to have something fun? But no, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you about when I lost someone that meant a lot to me. So when I was 17, going into my senior year of high school, my Nana passed away on August 16th. It was 8 days before her 79th birthday. And I adored my Nana. This is my mom's mom, and she lived with my nuclear family. We had a 4-bedroom house, and the fourth bedroom was always sort of like either an office space or a TV room or whatever. And when my Nana's health started declining, when I was a freshman in high school, and her doctor felt that it would be better for her to live with her family. She moved into that room and she became sort of like a sibling.
I love that.
Yeah, well, it was sort of like she was like a mom figure and a sibling at the same time, because she was like cute and funny. And I remember like I would be singing in my room, and her room and my parents' room were downstairs, and then me and my brother were the only ones upstairs. And I remember one day I was like singing in my room, and she was like, "I hear you singing," and like she was just like really cute. And I loved having her living with my family. There was like no adjustment period. It was like the best thing, and I loved having her on Christmases, and like it was just great. And she had a host of health issues. She had diabetes. She had 2 heart attacks and a quadruple bypass. She had a really bad hornet allergy that caused her to go into anaphylactic shock a few different times in her life. She was anemic. She was a survivor of breast cancer. So she had a lot of health things happening. And so in the end, when she passed, it wasn't of any one thing. She didn't have an illness that was like a defining thing. She sort of had some dementia toward her old age, but it wasn't too bad. But yeah, so she passed away, and I took it hard. I mean, I took it exactly how I expected to. I was very sad, and I felt like the world felt different around me, and it gave me comfort that I had a brother who was living my exact experience. Like, he also lived with her and had her as a grandparent, and I am one of 10 grandchildren on that side, so I wasn't alone in that. I had cousins, and that felt good. But ultimately, the thing that really defined me is everything that happened after my Nana passed away, the way that my family really broke apart, my extended family. It's hard for me to talk about, and I don't know that I can on here, but the lack of love that I feel from my extended family has hurt me so deeply and has really changed how I define family. And I was thinking about this in preparation for this episode, and I think that if I had to define family right now, it would be the healthy relationships you keep in your life. It is not blood for me. Of course, I love my immediate family, and there are people in my extended family that I love and that I have love for.
Yeah.
But the friendships that I hold are my family. The people that I choose to spend my time with are my family. And it's something that like I would go to bat for. Like, if people are like, blood is thicker than water, I would just be like, okay, well then meet my family. No offense to my family. I don't think you're listening to this. I don't think you care. But yeah, I mean, just the way that people, when the matriarch of a family passes, it's really interesting what happens to a family, and watching that at a time in my life that was supposed to feel a lot different. You're going into your senior year of high school, and you've got so much to celebrate, and it really hurt. And I wish that my Nana was around to know what I'm doing now. I wish that, she passed before I decided on a college. And she has no idea that I wanted to be a journalist. I didn't know that at the time. But yeah, I really wish. What makes me the most sad is that anyone who came into my life after August 16th, 2013 won't know her. And that makes me really sad.
Even I've thought about that.
Yeah.
Like, I would have loved to have met her.
I know, she would have adored you.
Do you think we would have been pals?
Oh, yeah.
Yay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that there will always be a special place in my heart for my friendships that I had at the time when she was in my life. Some of them I'm still really good friends with, but others I have like sort of faded into the background of my life. And when I've run into them and they've brought her up to me, it's this kind of comfort that I can't even explain. Like the fact that someone else would know her in the way that I did and that would have understood how much she meant to me means a lot to me. So yeah.
Is there anything that comes up in your life that reminds you of her? Like, are there any, like, symbols or colors or animals or anything like that when you see it, it reminds you of her and you kind of feel like she's with you?
I don't know. I mean, this is going to sound silly. I know I've told you this before, but her favorite color was green. And my favorite color for a long time was green. It was like the color I painted my room green. And I decided recently that green isn't my favorite color anymore. And I finally decided to let myself be okay with that. And it sounds really silly, but it made me sad that we didn't share that anymore. I don't know. I think that just my mom, being around my mom, reminds me of her. I don't know. I don't think there's anything super specific, but I'll end this story by speaking of like feeling her around me. I don't tend to feel that. I actually, one time I remember saying to her, like, Nana, when you die, are you going to haunt me? Because I would welcome that.
You told me that.
And she was like, so not about, like, she was like, oh, stop, get out of here. But this past year, so 2019, it was her birthday. It was August 24th. And I was with my mom. And I was sitting in the living room of my mom's fiance's house in Reading, which is where my Nana lived and where my mom grew up. And the lamp was kind of flickering, and it's a lamp that's on a dimmer, so it's not that weird for it to flicker. But I was like waiting downstairs for my mom to come downstairs. We were going to run some errands, and then we were going to put some flowers on my Nana's grave for her birthday. And the lamp was kind of flickering, and just for fun, I guess you could say, I turned to the lamp and I go, Nana, is that you? And it went bing and lit up. And like my heart is like racing right now because I've never had anything like that. I've never felt like a strong presence, like nothing. And I told my mom, and my mom, like when I told her, immediately looked at the lamp and just smiled and went like, hi, mommy. Aww. And I like, you can hear it in my voice that I'm like getting choked up. But yeah, so I think that I'm sure she's around me all the time.
Yeah, that's kind of why I asked that question. Just
because you want to hear my cool story?
Yeah. No, I just think it's like important to bring people you've lost into your present because they can still be there. Like that story you just told is like a new memory you made with her.
Yeah.
And when she passed, I don't think you thought you'd make any new memories with her.
Yeah.
But that just goes to show you that you never know when you could make a new memory.
I've never thought of it like that's now part of my memories of her is even one that I created after her life. And like at Christmas this year, I went through like some of her jewelry that I hadn't seen, and I'm sort of like, there are certain jewelry items that I didn't like at the time she passed when we sort of went through some of her things. But now I think they're cool and like retro or something. And so I just like took a couple little things to play with, just like some costume jewelry. And so, yeah, I feel like I am still having some memories with her, which is really cute.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. All right. Bring us into your next defining moment, lady.
So reaching back to speaking about how my high school experience was, I'll say again that I didn't have much confidence in myself, but I also really wasn't given much validation from my peers to have much confidence. I had validation in music. Like I was kind of known as the girl who sang at assemblies.
Mm-hmm.
Like we would have a holiday assembly every year. We would have this thing called Afternoon with the Arts in the spring that would be like the school would get a half day and there would be musical performances. And basically at every one of these situations I sang. So that became like who I was in high school. And I did get validation for that because people would tell me I did well or whatever. But I didn't feel like I really got validation from my peers in my high school for just who I was as a person. I always felt really strange. Like I always felt like I was like more sensitive than everyone else and more emotional and just like not as cool and not able to like brush things off my back as well as everyone else did. Like I just like I just didn't really feel like I fit in high school. I just like noticed more that was different about me than that was the same as the other kids.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
yeah, so given that that was my high school experience, my next defining moment is just, and this is kind of cheating because this is like very much not a moment.
It's your life.
It's my moment.
It's one giant moment.
It is a huge, yeah, I mean, who knows? Moment, you could define moment in terms of months. Who knows? My next moment, defining moment, was, I would just say, my freshman year of college as a whole. I would almost say that that was the best year of my life.
Whoa!
Doesn't that sound weird? I've never said that or thought that, but I think it's true. I think that was the best year of my life so far.
It sounds like, I feel like now we should sing, you know? Like just the fact that you're like,
that was the best day of my life.
You said year, not day. Isn't there a song that's like, this is the best year of my life? Like, I don't know. Oh my gosh, I shouldn't have just done that.
I think I was thinking of Best Day by Taylor Swift.
Oh, but then there's also, if we're going for the best day, there's the SpongeBob song.
Best day
ever. Best day ever. When he hits that note, that's, oh my gosh. Oh, sorry, go on. So it's the best year of your life. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds crazy. It sounds dramatic, but I really do think it's true. Because I've never felt more comfortable with who I was than I did that year.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, especially in contrast, which this is why I harped on high school for a bit, especially in contrast to how I felt in high school. I feel like freshman year of college, every moment within this moment of mine was special and new and exciting and formative. So I remember like moving in with my roommate, and it was the first time. I'm an only child, so it was the first time that I had ever shared a room with anyone. So that was nerve-wracking, but it was also really exciting because I got to have all the like fun parts of a sibling, basically. Like we stayed up late talking and we just like talked about how we wanted our space to look, and it was fun. So like there was that, and then also my roommate and I formed this trio with another friend, and those two will always feel like family to me because of the things that we went through freshman year. There were some highs, like new places in Boston, because we went to school in Boston. I think we've said that. New places we explored together, just like exploring the college life itself together. And there are also some lows where we all went through some things together that year, and really helped each other through them. So those two I'll always love. And then also I got into Acquired Taste, obviously.
Whoop, whoop.
And that was like huge defining moment, I think, for both of us. Like if not defining for our whole lives, it was at least defining for college, because
Absolutely.
college would have looked completely different if we didn't get into acquired taste.
Totally. I mean, we wouldn't be living here together.
Yeah.
Apartment 6 wouldn't
This
exist
podcast,
without
like,
acquired taste.
it really is crazy how many steps you can go back to like things that would not be if not for AT.
Yeah. No, I mean, completely.
Yeah.
Completely. And even like the thing with defining moments is that if you were to go back further than that, like for me, like just, you know, to be an AT, I had to be at Emerson. To be at Emerson, I had to get into, you know, high school theater. To be into high school theater, I had to whatever. And so, I mean, I guess I didn't have to, but I feel like that doing high school theater.
It was the vibe.
Yeah, it was the vibe. Like being part of like performing arts and whatnot gave me an appreciation for arts and made me want to seek out a school that had that appreciation. So yeah, it's amazing when you start backtracking your life. Let's just not even go there. It's too much.
Yeah.
But
so
yeah.
I guess like it's a lot. Like saying that freshman year was a defining moment is a lot. But I think if I had to narrow it down to something in particular, it would be the friendships I made that year that made me feel so accepted in who I was. And I wouldn't trade those friendships for the world. No,
And that's that on that.
I'm glad to have those friendships, but I'm also glad to have more self-love because of the love those friends have given to me.
I'm speechless. I literally just was like, how does one even respond? That's so sweet. Yeah. She's talking about me, by the way. No, I'm just kidding.
Just you. Shout out to anyone who thinks that they would be one of those friends. I love you.
Thinks that they would be. You might not be,
I
but
don't know,
maybe. If you think you are, you are.
I know. I think it's funny. We haven't really like said anyone's name really on the podcast. I think it's just because we have no idea if anyone would want us to be saying their names.
Except we did say that Mary, who gave this idea, she's one of them.
She is one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's why I say if you think you are, then I love you. But otherwise I would say names, but
yeah. No, totally. I feel like even knowing you through freshman year, like I know how much growth you experienced that year. Even though I didn't know you before. Yeah, I just feel like you really came into your own that year. And I'm proud.
Yeah, and honestly, like there are a lot of reasons that I don't have any friends from my high school. My first moment being good explanation of why, but I think another reason why is that I'm just a completely different person than I was in high school. And I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for freshman year of college.
Yeah, I feel like freshman year for you is sort of what started to teach you like boundaries and like setting the boundaries that you wanted in your life, and like that includes like friendship boundaries and setting expectations for the people around you that maybe you didn't feel like you could have in high school. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. You just said that like you would never let friends treat you the way that some of those girls in high school did, and that's growth, baby. We are truly in like the weirdest moods tonight.
What is your next defining moment?
So mine also is actually tied to acquired taste. So my freshman year of college, during the second semester, I went through a really hard time where basically my anxiety medication stopped working, and I don't have any explanation for why, but I through like 3 months was having the worst time of my life. I was unable to eat really, so I lost some weight and I didn't need to lose, and I was throwing up a lot because of that. Like my gag reflex was awful, and just like if you know what that feels like, that anxiety and that panic, then you know what I'm talking about. And I had the best roommates for dealing with that, just because I imagine that it could have been kind of scary for them. And so I also was like talking to this guy throughout this time who just who just like was leading me on. He really loved to lay it on thick and then pull it away. And I was just having like such a hard time. And, eventually, my dog died. It sucked.
Yeah.
That was such a hard time. But things started to slowly clear up. I took my power back and cut things off with the guy. My medication started working, my new medication. And AT had, our end of the year concert. And I felt so good. By the time I got to that point, I'd gone on a date with a new guy who went on to be my boyfriend. I was so excited about performing again, and I bought a new outfit for the concert, and I just felt good. I felt like it was spring. We were coming out of winter. Everything felt good. And I remember after the concert, we had this great concert.
That was I have to intervene. That was the concert that I had my infamous solo that we always make fun of now.
I thought you were going to say that was the concert where the ceiling was falling down right before.
That's also very true.
Okay, so the concert was good, all things considered. But
it was good besides my solo, basically.
No, get out of town.
Yeah,
if we're going to blame you for that solo, we have to talk about everyone else's solos in that too.
No, I just have to say that I performed the vocal part, like the chorus of the song All I Do Is Win. All I do is win, no matter what.
Do you want to give us a little?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Well, so we had a good concert, and we were all going to a party at someone's apartment after, and like the air was like so nice. It was actually April 17th, if you want to know the exact
This
date.
girl in dates, you guys, my God.
I know I'm really weird about dates. I could tell you a lot of things. I feel like I sometimes worry that I'm going to like say something to someone like, oh, like happy birthday. And they're going to be like, why do you know my birthday? Or like happy birthday to your dog. And they're going to be like, why do you know my dog's birthday? Or something like that. But it's not weird. If you know me, you know that I just know every date. It's very odd. But yeah, so on April 17th, we like bust out of the concert venue. And I just remember having this moment. I was surrounded by my friends. And I just was happy. I was so happy, and it felt like this huge weight was lifted after such a like hard 3 months that I remember calling my mom and being like, Mom, I genuinely don't know if I'm ever going to feel happy again. Like I can't imagine feeling happiness right now. And, give it a few weeks and I was like so good. I was feeling so good. And I think that was a defining moment for me, because it's one of those moments that I look back and I'm like, that is one of the best moments I've ever had. And it set the tone going into the rest of college. And it also just, it was a very clear shift in something really crappy that I was dealing with, and then something really great. And I think that I can't say that necessarily shaped me as a person. I think going through all the bad stuff before did, but the point is that when I look back at specific moments, there was like a 30-second like high.
You reached nirvana.
I did. I reached
bliss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I said to Marissa earlier when we were talking about this, I was like, it's like someone took serotonin and dumped it into my head for the first time in like 3 months. It was great.
I mean, I remember too how giddy it felt.
It was giddy
to like leave this concert that you were like so proud for participating in, and you had these friends around you, and you were, not only did you feel good about what you just did, you were also excited for what you were about to do, which was like go to a party and continue to hang out with them.
Yeah, and like classes were winding down, the weather was warm, we had all these plans, we had people's birthdays coming up. It was just, oh my gosh, it was so good.
Yeah, so like if I remember feeling pure joy during those types of times too, then like I can only imagine how much better it felt to feel that joy after feeling so low before that.
Yeah, contrasted with what was going on. It was heavy, and then it was light. Bring us home. What's your last defining moment?
Oh, my last one's a biggie, but it's also pretty recent, so it's pretty fresh on the brain. And on the heart.
On the brain.
Yeah. This is one that's like a very specific moment in time.
Hmm.
So this past October, so October of 2019,
I can tell you the date if you want.
what was the date? Give it to us.
October 26th.
There it is. There's the date. Yeah, I do remember A, that it was October, and B, that it was going to be your birthday soon.
Mm-hmm.
So she's probably right, folks. But I went home for whatever reason, maybe no reason, maybe just to say hi to my mom. And I had actually gone to a concert that week, to one of my favorite artists, Ingrid Michaelson. And this concert was great. And I actually very strangely got to meet her after the concert very briefly. Got yelled at because we weren't supposed to take pictures while we were meeting her, because it was a very like quick assembly line thing. So I got chastised for trying to get a picture of my moment with her. So it was just like it was a big deal to me. So I took the train home. Must have been like that. I think it was that Friday. I think I saw Ingrid on like a Tuesday and went home on a Friday. My mom picked me up from the train, and we immediately went to pick up pizza, which I was like, hell yeah, best day ever. So so we go
this
to
girl loves pizza like no one else.
So much. But we go to pick up the pizza, and we're sitting in the pizza place and waiting for the pizza, and I'm telling my mom all about the concert and meeting Ingrid and exactly how it went, and my mom is being so sweet and listening to me, and like it was just like I felt so happy, and it was like my perfect night. Like I was like sitting with my mom, we were getting pizza, it was the best. I went to sleep in my house that night after eating said pizza, and I woke up the next morning, and I was greasy haired, and I was wearing pajamas. They were white, and they had pictures of deer on them because it was cold in my house. So I was wearing winter pajamas. Winter pajamas, greasy hair. My mom was in the living room. She was sitting on the couch watching TV, and I plopped down next to her, as I usually do when I'm home and it's the morning and I'm sleepy, and I'm just like groggily like, hey, what's up? Like, what are we going to do today? We're going to go to Target, like whatever.
Yeah.
And she just kind of looks at me, and she is already choked up when she's talking to me, and she's like, Marissa, I have something to tell you. And my reaction was just to like laugh because I didn't know what else to do. I was like, okay, like, well, what's the big deal? Like, I don't know. I could just like tell that something was off. And I remember in that moment being like, whatever she's going to tell me, this is my last moment before I know it. Like, this is the last moment where everything's fine and good. And she's about to tell me something that's going to flip my life around.
Ooh, that just really hit me when you say it like that. Because, like, I know what's coming next, but
yeah,
just the fact that you, in the moment, were cognizant of the fact that something was about to shift, like, gives me chills.
Yeah.
I also remember you telling me that she kept asking you, did you get a good night's sleep? Are you sure? Yeah.
She was just being so sweet. And, like, she's always very sweet, but she's not always so, like, that attentive and motherly. She was being like very like, sweetie,
yeah,
like,
as if you're like
did
little.
you sleep? Yes, exactly. So she says she has something to tell me, and essentially she told me that she was sick with something, and the reason I'm being vague is because she's been very private about it, and I want to really respect that, so I'm not going to go into specifics about what it was, but she told me she was sick with something that a lot of families unfortunately have to experience and deal with. And she told me and I cried like a baby. And so did she, which is rare because, I mean, I'm a crier. Like, I would cry a lot to her, but that was maybe like the second or third time in my life that I've seen her cry. So like to cry together was a very defining moment in itself. But yeah, so we cried, and then Then she was like, okay, but anyway, can you help me decide which of these eye creams I bought to keep?
Because we got to go to Ulta.
Then that day we went to Ulta. And it was just like, of course, that's what we did. But yeah, so that moment resulted in some difficult moments to come.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom had to have a surgery. And I had to be a caretaker. So I went home, I think for a total of like 2 weeks. I was home every day. I helped her take a couple of baths, which was interesting. I think it all felt very backwards because no one expects to have to take care of their parents in that way at this age. I think it's normal to think of having to help your parents like get around the house and get dressed and wash themselves and all that stuff when they're elderly, but no one thinks about having to do it when you're in your early 20s.
Yeah.
So it felt very backwards, but it also was really gratifying to be able to really feel like I was there for her, because she obviously has been there my whole life. Like she's my best friend. Like we have a really, really good relationship, and I'm extremely lucky to have that. So in this weird backwards way, her getting sick and being able to be there for her and do so much for her was actually a great way for me of giving back to her everything that she had given me. So yeah, that was crazy town bananas, I'd say. But
that's how you would define it.
But I think the way that it's changed me is that it's really given me perspective about worst case scenarios, because I'm someone who is generally I'm a worrywart basically. So like I always think of like, well, if we're late to this, then like this person's going to be mad. And now I'm like, I can compare the feeling of someone being a little ticked off that I was late to the feeling of my mom being sick. And it's just given me a lot of perspective to be like, there are way worse things that can happen than being 5 minutes late.
Yeah, no, totally. I even remember around that time we were talking about one specific scenario, and you were like, I don't even have the headspace to care about that anymore. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that makes total sense. Like, yeah. It makes total sense that like it doesn't matter as much to you anymore. This thing that, maybe was bothering you a month before all of this.
Yeah. And that's something that I wasn't sure how long I would feel that effect. Like I wasn't sure if once she made it through to the other side, I wouldn't feel that way anymore, and I would start going back to more of my worry-warting ways. But I still feel the effects of that to this day, where like I feel like I have a lot better of a grasp on what's important, what's a worst case scenario, what's worth stressing over and what's not, what's a genuine problem, what's not, all these things. Yeah, so that's definitely why that has defined who I am as a person.
And she's good now.
She is good. Again, sorry, I'm being very vague and not giving specifics, but she has come to the other side as much as she possibly can now. She's come to the other side of said sickness.
That's okay. No one needs
shall
to know.
Not be named. Yeah. And like I said, she was always my best friend, but like I love her even more now.
What a nice little button.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the show, the button. I feel like that's the
mommy.
That's the button on this podcast. But actually, this really is the end of the podcast.
Wow, we're already here.
We're already here.
Wow.
Isn't it sad? Now we have to like say goodbye to our friends. Yeah, this has been, I feel like, the chillest episode. Like, I feel so calm right now.
Yeah.
could be the one.
I know.
Um,
Full circle.
but also we're both literally like, we have an L-shaped couch. What do they call that? A sectional?
Yeah,
Is it
an
a sectional?
L-shaped is good.
We have an L-shaped couch. We're each sitting on either end of the L, just like totally like relaxing with our mics. And so I feel like I'm just, and like it's, the sun has set as we've been talking. And so I just feel really chill. And so if we've been a little like, that's why. We're just honestly enjoying our Saturday. And I feel like this topic itself lends itself to a very like, we can kind of talk about things, how we feel comfortable, and it doesn't have to be so like scripted. And I feel like that was the point of this episode, is just to talk about things in a way that's meaningful to us. I hope that it maybe inspired you to look at your own life and think about some things that you've learned along the way, or some moments that have defined you. This was a really great exercise for us. I think it got me really, really thinking.
Yeah, I think it's, even if you do any sort of like journaling, I think it's a great prompt to give yourself. And I think we did 3, right?
Yeah, we each did 3.
Which I felt like 3 was a good amount, but you can just make your own list of however many you want. And honestly, I think we would love to hear some. If anyone feels like messaging the Apartment 6 Instagram and sending us some moments, I think we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, no, totally. We would, because so many of the people that follow us right now are, friends. And so if you have any desire to share with your pals, us, please feel free to direct message us. Feel free to put it in the comments when we post this episode. We always post a photo with a teaser. Please feel free to put it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you guys about episodes that you'd like to hear, like some topics that you'd like to hear, for example, because we think this was a really great idea.
Thanks, Mary.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mary. And so, yeah, we would love to hear your defining moments. You don't have to go into great detail, but it would be fun. And we hope that you have a great week.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.